Hey, it's Jason with the Marketing Podcast Network. You have less than 1 month left to get special early bird pricing for the Creator Economy Expo 2023. This event, folks, is for content creators and entrepreneurs interested in building and growing their content-first businesses. Do not miss this show. Join over 500 bloggers, podcasters, authors, newsletter writers, speakers, consultants, and freelancers at the learning and networking event for content creators. Plan to attend May 1st through the 3rd in Cleveland, Ohio. Register now to secure early bird pricing before it disappears March 31st. Early bird pricing ends March 31st. As a special offer, you can get $100 off just for listening to MPN shows like this one. Go to cex.events to register. Use the coupon code MPN100. The address, the URL, cex.events. That's the whole thing. Type that into your browser. cex.events. The code you use, MPN100. The Creator Economy Expo, Cleveland, May 1st through the 3rd. See you there.
As a business-to-business marketer, your needs are unique. B2B buying cycles are long, and your customers face incredibly complex decisions. Isn't it time you had a marketing platform built specifically for you? LinkedIn ads empower marketers with solutions for you and your customers. LinkedIn ads allow you to build the right relationships, drive results, and reach your customers in a respectful environment. On LinkedIn, you'll have direct access to and build relationships with decision makers. Of the 875 million users on the network, 180 million are senior-level executives, 10 million are C-level executives. You will also be able to drive results with targeting and measurement tools built specifically for B2B. And they work. Audiences exposed to brand messages on LinkedIn are 6 times more likely to convert. LinkedIn ads also ranked number 1 for security, community, and ad experience as part of Business Insider's Digital Trust Study. Here at Sway Group, LinkedIn is a pivotal part of our day-to-day and is just absolutely vital for building relationships with clients and with our employees. Make B2B marketing everything it can be and get a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome to The Art of Sway. This is a podcast that brings you inside the world of marketing through the lens of influence. I'm your host, Danielle Wiley. Each week, through candid conversations with industry insiders, we will uncover how influencer marketing is making an impact across all consumer buying habits and is changing the way we talk to each other. Let's dive in. David Abrams founded Cheap Ass Gamer in 2003, a website focused on providing its users with the latest information on video game sales and deals. Through affiliate marketing on social media platforms and the CAG website, CAG annually refers millions of dollars to retailer partners such as Amazon and Best Buy. David is also a podcast host and producer, having created over 740 episodes of his award-winning CAGcast podcast since 2005. As one of the early YouTubers, David is credited with having the first popular unboxing video on YouTube and was featured in an exhibit in the Museum of the Moving Image in New York City. David lives in Long Island, New York with his wife and son, where he enjoys table tennis, bedroom DJing, and playing the occasional video game. I've known David Abrams since nursery school. We grew up on the same street and have lots of just fun and wacky Long Island memories together. The crazy thing, he probably wouldn't describe himself in this way, but David has been a gaming influencer since the mid-2000s. It was really fun. It's just always fun catching up with him, but I had never heard his full journey, and it's kind of a fascinating one. So I hope you all enjoy this. Well, hi.
Hi.
This is fun because I usually start this by asking about your journey, and I feel like I know the first half of your journey because I live 2 doors down.
Was that a journey, really?
Was it? I feel like it's been a long journey to where we are now from this. Yeah, growing up on Long Island isn't interesting.
I'm back somehow.
You're back. You're back. So my experience of your journey, I mean, we all got our first computers in elementary. I think I got mine for my bat mitzvah. You had one before I did.
Yes. My dad was a very early adopter of technology. So as soon as something came out that could be purchased by a regular person and, it was semi-affordable, he would thoroughly investigate it find out what the best one was. He's had a subscription to Consumer Reports for like 30 years or something like that. So yeah, as soon as like the first IBM, he didn't want to pay for the real IBM PCs because those were too expensive. But as soon as those clones came out that were coming out of Asia and they were more affordable, he got those.
My first computer was a K-Pro.
K-Pro?
Yeah, which we got from my other neighbor, from Steve Schwartz, sold it to my parents. I'm remembering it as K-A-Y Pro, for sure from Asia. Right. It was large.
Sounds budget.
But I remember you coming over because I was like, I don't know what to do with this giant thing that's sitting.
Right. I'm sort of remembering now. Yes.
Yes, and then we've talked about this. You brought me the floppy disk with Executive Suite on it, which was the best game. I love that game.
Right. That's right.
I've lived that game. You had to like start from the mailroom and make your way up to CEO. Was the whole point of the game, and it was all commands.
Yeah, I mean, this is when computer games were green and black.
Yes. You always knew so much more about computers, and I remember you like being on, I guess they didn't call them message boards, like bulletin boards.
BBSs, yes.
BBS, yeah.
I mean, I was an only child, and both my parents worked, so I would come home from school and I would go to the computer. I would sit there and, back then you sort of had to make your own entertainment. Of course, there were some games that you could buy at the store, but there weren't that many. Like now there's thousands to choose from. And certainly, my parents weren't buying me games. You could discover the early version of the internet, which was, having a modem and dialing phone numbers into computers that people had in their homes, basically, that were running, message boards out of their house. And I got like into that culture in quotes, because the culture really was, it was like an internet that people didn't know existed, really. Like only like the biggest nerds knew about it because
it wasn't the neighbors of the biggest nerds.
Or the neighbors, people who would tell them about, oh my God, because you would find out like there was knowledge there to be learned. There were illegal games that were copied and that you could download for those whose parents weren't going to be buying them those games anyway. There was like the early version of pornography, which was printed out symbols. Do you remember that?
No.
Like people would print out. You remember those dot matrix printers that everybody had that were so noisy? And they would just people would design nude pictures out of ASCII symbols, God. Just out of letters and numbers and symbols.
So it would make I was picturing like a little eggplant, but they would make an actual like.
That would span across several pages of your printer. Because remember back in those days, the pages were all connected and you'd have to separate them. So you would print out like a centerfold or something. It would be like 5 pages. It was ridiculous. It was just like zeros and exclamation points put together. And if you cover your eye and you put it far enough away, maybe it looks like something.
I mean, if you're 12, it's probably all.
It was very exciting.
More exciting than anything else happening.
And it would take of course, everything took forever to happen, like to download anything or to connect or anything just took forever. And then one day I remember I was getting addicted to there was a service called CompuServe, and they had online games they were actually like the earliest version of multiplayer games. And I remember, and they would charge you. You had a certain number of the free minutes, but if you go over the free minutes, you get a bill. And I remember one day my dad comes home from work and I hear him downstairs, open the door, and he starts going through the mail. And I knew there was a bill from CompuServe there, and I knew I was in big trouble. And I just hear, David, like from downstairs, and that was the end of CompuServe. It was like a $200 bill in like 1986 or something. It wasn't good.
It's wild how long that was going on for. I was just reminiscing with my husband that one of my first jobs was at the Food Network, and we didn't have internet. And I brought in a phone cord and I plugged my computer into the phone jack at work. And I would spend all day on AOL chatting with his friend Blake, who was the only one I knew who was on AOL. And I got in trouble at work.
Right, sure.
And this was 1996. Like it took a long time for that
to kick in. And like now they know exactly what you're looking at, like what part of your screen you're looking at, and you don't get away with anything.
No, not at all.
But all that early stuff got me into gaming, obviously, because I had access to games that, I didn't have to buy. I could get back then they were called cracked versions. Like they were like these these pirate groups, and they would basically remove the copy protection from the games, and then
like an unlocked phone, kind of
like an unlocked phone, except you're downloading them, and of course it was so slow because it was over your phone connection, and it would take hours and hours, like a whole day to download something, and of course, like it was just a phone call. So phone calls get disconnected all the time. Maybe your mom picks up the phone while you're doing it and she doesn't know. And that's it. You could have been doing it for 14 hours. You had 5 minutes left and it's done. It's over. You have to start over. So I got into all those types of games, of course. And as games got more advanced, my dad would pick up the new consoles too, even. So he certainly, while he wasn't very interested in playing the games himself, he definitely, he didn't, it was fine. Like he was bringing the systems into the house. He would buy me games, and I guess he knew I was a latchkey kid, so they were trying to keep me entertained.
I mean, he must have always. I mean, I know your dad, and he's a smart guy. Like he must have also sensed this was. I don't know if he knew this was the wave of the future, but that something was changing with communication. Like, or do you think he purely saw it as this is entertainment for this kid who's really bored, and I feel bad that he's bored?
It's probably a little of that. I think he's generally interested in the technology and still is, but not to the point where he needs to be involved with it personally. It's more like, oh, I brought it into the house. I see like someone's getting use out of it. And to your point, yeah, maybe this is something that could mean something in the future, but also it's going to keep him busy while I'm listening to opera.
Yeah.
He wants to do his own thing after coming home, and he wasn't playing the games with me. I tried to get him to play, but
yeah.
But so that basically got me addicted to video games. And even through college, like video games were very popular in college, and we played a lot then.
And I don't even know if I know what you majored in.
History, American history.
Okay.
I went to University of Rochester. I didn't think it really mattered what I majored in. I knew that like I would get a lot of writing work done doing like a history major, and I like writing. And I liked history, so I did that.
You're the second history major in this season so far that I've interviewed. I interviewed the owner of Zingerman's Deli and Zingerman's Community of Businesses, which is a big business here. And he majored in Russian history. I mean,
learning how to write well, or at least the basics of it, is important for probably most jobs. So it seems like a good path. So, I mean, I've always been interested in video games since, like the first arcade games. And when I got out of college and, like you were saying, you get your first job and the internet was sort of starting to appear. I started, wasting time at work like most people. And one of the things that I was wasting time on were these bargain sites, which were basically just every day they would just list like anything that was a ridiculous deal anywhere. So there's a fax machine at Home Depot and you can get it for $5 after you mail in the rebate. Or there's a blender at Bed Bath & Beyond and it's free after the rebate or something. And I got really into looking at that because once in a while they would have a video game deal that popped up. And it was something just as ridiculous like that. It was like a game for $5 or something. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know that they had these types of clearance deals. And then I thought after, the site was called Ben's Bargains, by the way. I'm not even sure if it's still there. I was like, I wish there was just a site like this for video games because the video game deals only come up like once a day, maybe once every 2 days. And there's probably more deals. So I started just looking to see if there were deals. And sure enough, I would go to ebgames.com, which is now gone. And I would just sort the prices by lowest price and say like, oh yeah, there are deals. And then I thought like it would be great if there was a site just for video game deals. And I just basically Googled my way to like making a website. So I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. Like anything today, you can YouTube or Google your way through it, really with just basic technical knowledge. And so that's what I did. I got like a Movable Type, which is a blog software, which was very cheap. And I got some free forum software. And I basically just, the front page was the Movable Type blog. And then the community was this forum. They really didn't connect much, but that was it. And then, like I said, I would just scroll through the retailers, find out what was a deal and what wasn't, and just share them.
And you were doing this while at your day job?
I was doing this while at my day job, correct.
No judgment. I once wrote an entire business plan my day jobs.
I mean, look, I didn't have any complaints about my work. I mean, most of the work was done after I got home from the day job. So because you couldn't, obviously people are walking by your desk. It's not a great work environment. And also, like, I'm working for somebody else and getting paid. So I would come home from that job and I would really spend like all afternoon, and sometimes stuff would break and I would be up at like 3 a.m. Googling how to fix things that I don't know anything about, and then go to work the next day. And then, if something big comes up, certainly I would be posting it at work. But it would be like today running a social media account while at your job, while at a completely separate job, which is like pretty doable because you're just doing things in short bursts. And I was just basically posting, hey, this game is $10 off at Amazon, and here's a link. I didn't have to write a whole thesis about the game.
Were you putting in affiliate? Because I did affiliate links back in the early 2000s, and it was a pain in the ass, but you could do it.
Right. So I learned from Ben's bargains about the whole about affiliate marketing and how he was making money. And for people who don't know, affiliate marketing is basically almost every retailer has a program where they'll provide, influencers now or websites with links that when people click and buy something, they will pay you a commission. And it seemed great. Because I was so into video games that I thought about opening up an online store, just like a video game store, straight up selling games. And I did the research and I looked at what the margins were, and they were so bad because, video games are really designed to get a customer into a big box retailer and then buy something else. Okay, you're going to spend $60 on this game, which the retailer is maybe making $10 on, if that. They're not probably, but maybe you'll buy a refrigerator or something else. So I looked at that and I was like, this is not probably a good business to get into. And then I was like, well, but I could make 8.5% just by somebody clicking on a link and buying the game, and I don't have to store any games or ship any games or take risk or pay rent or do any of this stuff. I'm like, let me try this. I mean, it's cheap to lease a server. So I basically put that all together. I remember I was living in Manhattan in my walk-up apartment. And I remember coming to my mailbox downstairs one day, and there was a check from EB Games in there for $6,000.
Oh my God.
And this was like 2003 or 2004. And I wasn't making that much at my regular job. And I was like, I stared at the check because I just couldn't believe it. And it was relatively easy money. Like, I was putting in the time, certainly, but it's not like I was shingling a roof or anything like that. It was just finding video game deals and posting them and keeping a community happy, which was probably the most challenging part.
How did you let people know about this? Because this is there was...
So that was tricky.
There wasn't Twitter.
Right.
There were blogs. I'm trying to think how
there was nothing
boards.
Really.
So it was commenting and
there were other message boards.
Being part of the community.
Yes. So there was a huge message board. It's still there, called Game Facts, FAQS, and it was purchased by a big company long ago. But back in the day, it was an independently owned site, and it was very bare bones, like every site. And you could talk about any game you want. Like, every game had its own message board. So what I did, I had already a fairly active account there. So what I did is, in my signature, I would post, hey, check out the hottest video game deals at Cheap Ass Gamer, which is the name of the company that I came up with. And sure, because, I thought it would stand out. If someone sees ass, they're like, whoa, ass, what's that about?
Yeah. Must be good.
Must be good. And sure enough, it actually worked. I wasn't obnoxious about it. I wasn't just spamming, because they'll ban you. No one's going to put up with that. I didn't even really post about the site. I would post about other things, but I would have the stuff in the signature. And eventually some people would come over and they told other people. And I never did advertising, conventional advertising. I didn't have any money to do that. This was the way to do it. I got lucky in that it was the sort of the dawn of the internet, and there just weren't that many destinations that were great, and so people checked it out and it was useful. Every gamer needed to buy games. It was just, if you're a gamer, you're not getting the games for free. You have to buy them. There's no going to the BBSs anymore and downloading the cracked versions. That's not 100% true, but for the most part, people are not doing that. It's a lot more complicated. So this was something that any gamer could identify with, needing to acquire games in a cheap manner, because games are expensive. So I did that, and I found success really quickly which was surprising. And I was working at this regular job. I was working for a nonprofit. Actually, it was my father's, the nonprofit that my father worked for a long time. He was retired already by the time I got there. Soon after that, my wife, who's Japanese, she got a job offer to work in Tokyo. And they would, it's a nice deal where they help you find an apartment. They don't pay your rent or anything because she's Japanese, but they make things a lot easier for you. It's a great opportunity for me to quit my real job, work on Cheap Ass Gamer full time because I could do it from anywhere. And also Japan is like the home of video games. So it seemed like a good fit for me. And it was really good. And the time difference was interesting because I could some things were advantageous. Like it's very annoying to work in Japan and have to deal with the East Coast because you're going to bed and people are waking up and you can miss people for days. If you miss one connection, the time difference works against you. For posting video game deals specifically, it was great because most of the retailers update their catalogs in the middle of the night in terms of the price changes. It's like 3 a.m. or something like that. For me, that was now the afternoon. And I could look at that stuff and get the stuff out in a timely manner and be on top of everything.
And everyone's waking up to the deal.
And yes. And it was perfect. It was really great. And even on things like on Black Friday, where there's so many deals and it was just so helpful. And back then when the commission rates were so high because Amazon was just trying to like swallow everything, right? So they were paying these ridiculously high commission rates, which was also forcing other companies to try to probably to lift theirs more than they wanted to because otherwise they wouldn't be competitive. Everybody was buying everything from Amazon anyway. Yeah. So it was a real success for me in that I was making so much money from these affiliate earnings because the commissions were unsustainably high. They couldn't have been making that much money on the games that they were selling after paying the commissions and all their other expenses. They were losing money. And I know they were because Amazon would tell me.
Well, and you get commission. I know from how affiliate works, like if someone clicks the link from you for the game, but then they also buy a refrigerator, like you're getting that commission. Yes. It's just where they enter from. It's not specific to the product that you're posting.
Correct. So a store like Amazon, which sells everything, and also sometimes these links, like it's not just what they buy right after they click through. There's cookies and they can last for days or weeks, depending on. Back then, it was very generous. Now it's
less so.
Not. But it's okay. I had a good run.
Yeah.
So it was great. And so the Japan thing really worked out. And then because like YouTube was coming on right around then, I could post these videos from Japan that people thought were like, they were exotic. Like they were literally exotic because everybody didn't have a camera phone, a video recorder in their pocket back then. I did because I lived in Japan and they were more advanced in the phones and you could buy handheld cameras on the cheap that were really great. And I started making YouTube content, and the YouTube content really helped a lot because we had all these gaming blogs out there that were posting. This was before influencers. So it was the age of bloggers. And there were all these gaming blogs that popped up that were challenging the established gaming media, and they needed content because that was their thing, right? Blogs, they just post all day. It was just whatever, just put it up there. And here was a guy in Japan who was making videos about, gaming in Japan, stuff that they couldn't get access to. And I would just put it up on my YouTube channel and they would cover it. They would just take my video and embed it in a post. It was great for the bloggers because it was an easy post for them. It was just, they would write 2 sentences and embed a YouTube video. And it was great for me because at the end of every video, I would plug Cheap Ass Gamer. I would have words come up. Check it out. It was the best free advertising. So I would just go buy consoles that would come out, special edition consoles anything that wouldn't come out in America that I thought a blogger would be interested in, that would link to, I would just make a video of it. Because it was the cheapest advertising. Spend $300 on a console and get 300,000 views on YouTube because all these sites just posted about it. I'd spend 5 minutes making a video. Like it was.
Yeah. And then you were making ad revenue from YouTube or it was just for the promoting of.
It was before you could monetize YouTube.
Okay.
I don't know how I feel about that because on one hand, like if I could have monetized those videos, I would be a YouTuber now, probably.
Yeah, you'd be like Mr. Beast.
it's weird because while I was living there and the videos would get posted, they would get like a couple 100,000 views. And this was back in the day when that was like a lot. I would have people come up to me in Japan and recognize me from the YouTube, like Americans who would come visit Japan, and they would run into me in the subway or something, and they'd be like, I see your videos on YouTube. And I was like, this is very weird. And I remember one time I was walking my son home from school, and he had to go to the bathroom really badly. Like we were like hauling butt home, and we got stopped by some guy who saw some McDonald's video I made or something like that. And he's just like talking. I'm like, my kid's got to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry, we got to go. And we like, it was a whole emergency, but it worked out okay. But it got me thinking, like, sure, it's nice to be recognized, and certainly like once a month or something like that is not going to affect anybody's life too negatively. But what if like this happens every time you go out? Like, I'm sure Mr. Beast can't go anywhere.
Yeah, we were at a Michigan football game, and there was, I don't know who it was. There was a gaming YouTuber in our section. My son Max was next. He was like, "Oh my God, Mom, he's like a big YouTuber." And all these people were taking photos. I mean, he was just there watching a football game.
And I'm sure he loved that like the first 5 times that happened. But now when he's just trying to watch the game or something and just relax, it's probably not that great. I'm sure he would like to have his at least have the option of having some privacy. I don't know how I feel about missing out on that YouTube, because I'm sure I would have went for it if I thought, I was young then, and I probably would have went for it. But now I'm sort of glad that didn't happen. I like to just walk around, and even now, like a lot of bald white guys look the same. I get people coming up to me now. Just last week, some young African-American guy, very hip-looking guy, he's like, "I'm sorry, sir. I don't mean to bother you, but you look very familiar to me. Do I know, have I seen you somewhere?" And it's like so awkward, right? Like, well, I do have some YouTube videos with, 800,000 views with me opening up a PlayStation.
Yeah,
but like,
let me list all the ways.
Well, unless you're a big video game nerd, you probably don't know who I am. That's what I say now. And then I say a line about all bald white guys looking the same, which is fair. It's true. Because I'll be at a restaurant and I'll see a bald white guy, and I'm like, yeah, guy does kind of look like me.
I'm married to a bald white guy. You guys look very different, but
right, he does. That's true. The YouTube stuff, like it was cool, and it was very fun, and it was great promotion for Cheap Ass Gamer. But I wasn't making any money. It was pre-influencer. I wasn't making any money on it directly, but it was turning me into sort of like an early gaming influencer.
Yeah,
because you had, you did have, gaming is a huge business, and these big games cost as much as a big movie to put out. And the marketing budgets on these games are just like movies. They're like 50% of what it costs to make the game. So these days, a big part of the marketing budget is going into gaming influencers, which, as your son pointed out, are streamers. They're Twitch streamers, basically, for the most part. But back, before Twitch, it was basically people like me who were making like memes on Twitter, like gaming memes. They were making videos that would get picked up places. I remember there's a big gaming expo every year called E3. I've gone every year except when there's a pandemic, because they didn't have it. And I remember, you have to have appointments for everything. And I remember we were seeing this game BioShock, which was a huge game, for the first time. And they're calling people into the room. They're just, and not everybody's going to get in. It's clear not everybody's going to get in. And they call Cheap Ass Gamer, and people start laughing, right? Because they don't really know what's happening. They just they say they announced Cheap Ass Gamer. They were announcing, and people started laughing because it's funny. They were announcing that we were getting into this meeting to see this hot game that not everybody was going to get into. So I remember feeling really good because they were laughing at us. And then they realized that we were getting in and they maybe were not getting in. I felt really good about that. But that was like the early gaming influencers were really just bloggers, people writing, and basically people like me who were making early YouTube videos. It was hard back then to like not develop a little ego, right? Because people are inviting you to things, and certainly like I was very low. But I remember like there's always something that'll put it in perspective. And I remember going to E3 one year, and this was the year they're always trying to figure out what to do with the show, right? Is it supposed to be if everybody comes, or just like is it, how exclusive do we want to make it? And one year they decided to make it really exclusive, where you couldn't even apply to come. It was like, don't call us, we'll call you.
Oh, wow.
And they'll let you know if you're invited, basically. And somehow I got invited, and they had it in Santa Monica. It was really nice. And I remember going to Electronic Arts event, and I got there and I checked in, and they were so nice to me. It was so nice. And I was like so happy because it was such a nice hotel. It's such a nice setup. And they're like, okay, we're just waiting for somebody else who's going to be in your group. And then we're going to start the experience of showing you all these new games that are coming out. And I was so excited. And then the guy who was there was one other guy in my group, and he showed up. I noticed right away that they were fawning all over the guy. The guy was from USA Today. And as soon as he showed up, I got the stiff arm. I was the guy trying to peek my head over everyone's shoulders as they were showing the game, because they just completely forgot about me. And it put everything into perspective. I was like, I'm just some guy running some crappy website. Here's a guy from USA Today. And I get it. I wasn't even mad, because I realized yeah, of course, why I'm nothing. I think it's hard. It's probably hard to have that attitude if you are in the influencer world today, because they're just on another level, where some influencers now are more important than USA Today.
Oh yeah.
And that just was not, that was I couldn't even be offended by it when it was happening to me, because yeah, of course, USA Today, but now it's a whole different world now.
And do you think so is your audience now, is it an older audience? Are there younger? I mean, I know my son has gone to you for gaming advice, but that's just because he has an in. But
Sure.
is it do younger people know about you, or is
Yes.
the gaming influence and recommendation world more, is it kind of siloed by generation?
I think so. I started this podcast when right before I moved to Japan. So I know that a lot of my listeners are old like me, because I get messages from people who hey, I started listening to you in junior high, and I have kids now, or something horrible like that. Something really depressing. Yeah. So I know I'm almost positive that we have no young listeners coming into the podcast. I see the numbers. The numbers aren't going up on the podcast. But in terms of, Cheap Ass Gamer, we do a lot on Twitter, because we find that's a great deal delivery platform. All you need is a link, a picture, and a couple lines of text, and that's it. And it's, it's timely, and people get notified. So it's great for that. And so I'm sure we're picking up, we have a younger audience there, but I know that Twitter is not even really the thing that the kids are using these days.
Well, and is it?
You would know better than me.
Yeah. No, they're not. My kids stalk me and comment on my tweets that was stupid.
That's wrong.
They literally get notifications when I tweet, and then tell me I'm a stalker when I'm trying to find stuff out about whoever they're dating or
about them. Sure.
Yeah.
That's your job, though. You're supposed to do that.
So what do you think? Do you think Twitter's going to go away? Do you?
Oh, the whole Twitter thing is really bothersome on so many levels. I mean, I rely upon it a lot.
Yeah,
for
that's
my
why I was
income.
talking to someone last week about the fact that, I'm seeing a lot of posts I got rid of it. It was about time. He's an awful human. I'm not supporting this anymore. And I get it, but that also really comes from a place of privilege to be able to say, I'm just going to get rid of this platform because it's a source of networking and income, and it's vital to, it's been around for a long time.
Yes. I certainly, we're going to keep rocking on @video game deals as long as we can, because it's working out great. I mean, I know that it's useful for people. I know it's a good deal delivery system. We have sponsors who sponsor our posts, so I know it's working for them. So yeah, I am worried about the same things that everybody else are worried about, but there's not much I can do about that. I certainly, and on my personal account, I've found myself posting a lot less, because I do feel bad about supplying content. Not that my content is so great, but I do feel bad about giving that guy content. Did I ever tell you I was Elon's brother's real estate broker?
You what? I didn't even know you were a real estate.
I was a real estate broker for a commercial real estate broker for a year and a half. After I was in the video conferencing business for a while, and the company had decided to shut down their office when they got sued because there was another company that had their same name.
So this is like in the 90s?
This is in like 2000, late 90s,
Okay.
2000. That's a bad job. That's a really bad job unless your dad owns office buildings. Then it's a great job. So Elon Musk's brother Kimball came, and he's actually very nice. And for a guy who was like a 20-year-old who was worth like $50 million already, because he had just sold a company with Elon. And he was looking for office space to start. He was ahead of his time. He was starting basically a reality television show on the internet in 2000, and let's see when that was exactly. It was probably like 2000 or 1999 or something like that.
Wow.
And when video on the internet was like the size of a postage stamp, because there was no compression, like that was how compression worked. So he started this thing called Funky Talk, and it just died instantly because it was way ahead of its time.
I'm trying to remember what it was. There's a company. I listened to a How I Built This like a couple of years ago, and there's a very successful company that started as an internet reality. Was it Twitch?
Well, Twitch, yes, it was Twitch. Twitch was Justin TV, which was a little different because I think this thing was called Funky Talk, and I think it was just like basically cameras in an office, and I don't even know what they were doing. But Justin TV was basically just you take video cameras and in a backpack because you needed like live streaming technology, and we're just walking down the street and like let's just show everybody what we're looking at.
That's still interesting. I remember you showing we hired you to teach us all about Twitch a couple of years ago at Sway Group, and everyone's favorite was the bike messenger in New York who was just live streaming. Somehow it is kind of interesting to watch someone live
Mikey
their life.
Yes. It didn't look like that back in the Justin TV days because the technology wasn't that good. But now it's crazy. You can live stream 1080p like in almost any country.
Yeah.
In just a small little backpack.
Okay, so we ask everyone at the end of their episode to tell us what TV commercial from your childhood has stuck with you to this day.
So I listened to the episode. You had a gentleman on who worked for a candy company.
Yes.
And he brought up Nobody Beats the Wiz, which is great. Nobody Beats the Wiz, right? Everybody loves Nobody Beats the Wiz. But I feel like Nobody Beats the Wiz was really an answer to Crazy Eddie, right? Wasn't Crazy Eddie first?
I think so. And it's funny. I sent that episode to someone. One of the topics we talked about, I thought would be of interest to him. He was like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you were from Long Island. And I love Hess trucks too. And yeah, appreciate Nobody Beats the Wiz, but Crazy Eddie all day long."
Crazy. I mean, he was just a guy yelling at a camera for 30 seconds with him in the frame, basically just him in the frame, like with his hands moving a lot, saying that the prices are insane. And that whole, not only was the commercial crazy, but that whole store was a trip. Do you remember that store?
Yeah. I put it in the same category as PC Richards.
Yes.
Just chaotic crap everywhere. Just a mess.
Well, they encouraged you at Crazy Eddie to haggle with the salespeople, where you could say, "No, I don't want to pay $400 for the camera. I'll give you $380." And I know that our friend's father figured out the code to figure out what the lowest price was that they would accept on the price sticker.
One of our
Alan Bender figured it out.
Okay.
Or he had the hookup. Someone told him, but there was a code on each price tag. And if you took the number between the two nines and divided it in half, that was the lowest price that they would accept on that. So if you knew that going in, you could get that price every time.
This is my nightmare. Having to haggle is my nightmare.
I think they went out of business really soon after that came out.
After Alan Bender took them down.
I think it was Alan. I think Alan brought him down, not the tax fraud.
Oh my gosh. Too funny.
Yes, Crazy Eddie is the best.
Yeah. We had to bring him back. I don't think he's around. But this was awesome. Thank you.
It was fun. Thank you.
You can find David on social media on Twitter at CheapyD, CheapyD, and Video Game Deals. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please check back next Monday for a new episode featuring marketing conversations through the lens of influence. I am your host, Danielle Wiley, and this is The Art of Sway.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but there are other great shows on MPN to help your business too. I'm Jason Falls. I host The Rise, the community commerce marketing show. There we explore an exciting new category of marketing strategy and automation focused on driving brand growth through your own community. So you start with your own customers, employees, followers, and partners and empower them to recommend and refer your brand. You can subscribe to The Rise, the community commerce marketing show at marketingpodcasts.net or by searching for The Rise, the community commerce marketing show, wherever you get your podcasts. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.